Hey everyone, welcome to Powertime. Let's have a listen to what's on today's show.
And the other one, and this is also something that's inside of the contact center portfolio, is the agent for knowledge harvesting. And I will probably mess up the appropriate marketing term. You guys can add it into like there's somebody monitoring that something has gone wrong, and they reach out to you or they reach out to your agent, this Scott agent, and like they all sort it out for you and they let you know. They say, hey, we saw some power cycling on your VM, we solved it, and like you're informed. But yes, I think we will get there, and I think we will get there faster than we think that we will. And again, given
let's get into it.
It's power time. Get ready, let's go.
Hey everyone, welcome to Power Time. I'm really excited to introduce, actually, we would call Jenn, as she's been back on the podcast now for the second time, our co-host for today. I think that's really appropriate. And with Matt as well, my other co-host. So Jenn, welcome to a host on Power Time. That's what happens when you end up being on the show more than once.
Of course. What do they say? No good deed goes unpunished, right?
Yeah. For those that didn't listen to the first podcast, so you come to us from the Customer Zero team, which is one of the world's largest contact centers in Microsoft, of course. I will let you do the introduction, but the first podcast, everyone loved it. I will just say that. And we've got you back to talk about the contact center and the AI and things that's going through that at the moment, and an update. But maybe just an intro, Jenn, to the team that to people that haven't heard the first one.
Yeah, well, first of all, just thank you to you and Matt for having me on again. I avoided all the swear words and stuff that it would embarrass me and keep me from getting invited back on. But I just have the pleasure of working in Microsoft support. So a little bit of the statistics on the size of Microsoft support. We're about 45,000 support agents strong. And, we operate across 92 contact centers. And in those contact centers, we get a little over 1 billion consumers calling in and 10 million commercial customers. And so what that amounts to is about, 300 million or more in contacts every year. And, if you've seen, Microsoft is growing substantially. And so the volume also grows. And so how do we use technology, this gift that is AI, to be able to serve our customers? And so it's just an amazing responsibility that we get to run here in Microsoft support.
So did you say 1 billion? 1
Yes.
billion. Yeah. In Australia, we have a population of 30 million. So to fathom 1 billion people calling into a contact center, that's just a big number. It is.
It's big. Yeah. A little less than 10% of the world's population is in some form or fashion probably calling into us. So
yeah. Or you could see that as a bad thing, Jennifer, which is, there's a large chunk of people calling in with problems about Microsoft Kit. So what's the majority of the calls and things that kind of come in amongst?
It's a great question. And we get so much range. So we will get everything from a parent calling in because their 13-year-old son had gotten a hold of their credit card and decided to charge a whole bunch of Xbox credits. Not to say that happened personally. My son, I will protect his innocence to an extent. All the way up to, we'll get questions on just high frequency trading applications that are running on Azure. And, we do some filtering. So you're going to get, consumer customers, coming into consumer support engineers and then your Azure support engineers. But the technology isn't getting more simple, right? It's getting, more complex. So, and this because, you talk to customers about the technology, and it's not getting easier for you guys either.
Yeah, a lot of changes at the moment, and particularly around AI and agents. And I think as well, the way that we kind of look at technology now is and particularly in AI, is becoming a little bit more mature. I wouldn't say it's mature yet, but we're starting to look at multi-agents as trying to solve problems for us. Whereas before, it was kind of, let's just work on prompting and come up with a really good way to get something back out of the large language model. Now we've moved into this kind of world where we can actually get agents to do things on our behalf. And what if we have multiple agents all running off and doing things and bringing data back to like a master agent, and what would that look like? And can we bring data back into different applications? So that, and we're, really surprised at how accurate some of this stuff is as well, and how much it really saves time for our customers. So the next 12 months, I think, is going to be a real testament to the work that everyone's created. Of course, you guys were the first in the world, I think, to roll out CoPilot, in a large way. Yeah, Customer Zero, which is why we call you Customer Zero. So we're talking 2 years on now. How's it all going?
Yeah, well, I mean, I love that you mentioned the rise of the agentic capabilities, because when we were talking last year, we talked in the context of how is CoPilot allowing our agents to become super agents. And that is evolved. So now when you look at the whole case flow, so in the world of support, we are now seeing process automation. So pieces of the case, so one of the most important things is making sure that you have the customer intent connected appropriately with the right support engineer. So being able to leverage AI to do that, what that does is it translates into a much higher first call resolution. So you're not having to pass them off to other customers. And so these are all parts of the whole process that are fully automated. And then even some of the more toilsome things. I remember when I came on last time, I talked about, we were very intentional about our design principles. There are so many different use cases that you could launch with CoPilot that you can kind of get overwhelmed. And so for us, we said first, we want to make sure that we are removing the agent friction. We call it over here in the United States agent toil. I know we joked about how toil means time off in Australia, so we're not at your vacation, don't you worry. But one of the other agentic capabilities is this whole case handling process. And for our support engineers, the reason why we hire them and recruit them is they are really good at solving tough problems under pressure. And so once that process is complete, once they've found the solution, like the paperwork, the follow-up, making sure that the customer has in fact remedied the issue and being able to close out the case, that paperwork, that's not always so fun. And so we also now have this process automation around case handling where the agentic capabilities is doing that on behalf of our support engineers. So again, removing that agent friction. So it's just so cool to see the technology move so fast as well.
I love that one. For anyone that doesn't like admin, I hate admin. So getting on a meeting and then being able to populate my case, that case agent sounds something that would be of very interest to a lot of people. And you also touched on intent routing and that intent routing agent. I guess what are the sort of other technologies that you're sort of excited about? You may not have enabled them yet within your contact center, but what are some of the other features that you've kind of seen that you're really interested in obviously exploring in the next 12 months?
Yeah. The other one, and this is also something that's inside of the contact center portfolio, is the agent for knowledge harvesting. And I will probably mess up the appropriate marketing term. You guys can add it into the show notes. But, what happens so frequently is if you look at support, over 90% of the issues have been seen before. And, we have ingested from our knowledge corpus all of the release notes, the training materials, the product documentation to be able to help our support engineers resolve those problems quickly. But what do you do with the 10% where there is not yet knowledge articles available for those support engineers to use to solve the problem? And we run into this conflict between competing goals. Our support engineers, the two things that they care the most about is making sure that they have happy customers. So CSAT, they want to make sure that their customers' issues are resolved, and also making sure that you're clearing the queue, your backlog. And so those kind of behaviors, sometimes when you prioritize those, it means that when you close out a case that didn't have a knowledge article already available, even though for future support engineers, you should go write a knowledge article that documents all of that stuff that you've done, but that doesn't get, handled very often. And so what's so cool now is our knowledge management agent can look at the flow of the support case, and it could suggest and write the knowledge management article. Now, it's so important. We talked a lot about, the important ecosystem that you need to build, where you've got knowledge management custodians that are making sure that asset is appropriate to be incorporated. But again, just a game changer of how do you increase the knowledge that's out there to solve issues. So isn't that fun? How...
Do you think we'll have an agent to kind of to be that custodian, rather than have a person in the middle for that process?
Potentially. I don't know just yet. Things are moving so quickly that I imagine the next time we talk, potentially, I don't think we're there yet, but it's just because we want to make sure that the knowledge articles that we have is to a really high level. I don't know if you guys remember me talking about this, but when we first ingested all of our knowledge articles back a couple of years ago, we ingested 1.1 million knowledge articles. And that whole adage that we say of garbage in, garbage out, whole lot of, garbage. So we had to go through and cull everything. So we want to maintain that high level. So I think we're just being more careful about, what gets incorporated into the knowledge base. But yeah, stay tuned for more.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing how agents can support that moving forward. I was talking to a learned colleague actually in Seattle around the contact center, and some comments that we were kind of talking about was, the future of the contact center. We have an application that humans use, and with the advent of agents are going to go and do a lot of the action. So what we're thinking is, why do you need contact center kind of solution for the 90% that you already have an answer for of calls coming into the contact center? So what about your digital deflection? Because I can see a world where, someone gets onto a chatbot and the agent just goes and resolves it. Doesn't even need to go to the contact center. It can just go out, come back, and it's solved.
Yes. I'm excited about that as well. In fact, if you think about this, when a customer calls into support, that is the last resort. I don't know about you guys, but I always mode.
The best contact center is one that no one calls, right? That's
correct.
The theory. Yeah.
I'm on Teams meetings chatting to the live chat, trying to solve my problems, and I'm on calls that I'm just attending and stuff like that. So if you see me doing this, it's because I'm trying to pay my phone bill or trying to get something like that. So
Now, do you ever do this where you'll actually race to see which mode can fix your problem faster? Where you'll try the chatbot and then you actually call up. I did that recently, where I was just kind of curious who was going to solve the issue faster. So
that's awesome.
You've told me a loophole about contacting sales, and that gets you through faster than anything. I've used that before, so thank you on that one, Jennifer.
Let's close that loop now.
Yes, he's talking about some other vendor. Yes, so just a reminder of what Matt is talking about is this was a funny sort of surprise when we were first rolling out our agent determination. It was on voice. So when customers were calling in for issues, we suddenly saw a dramatic change in the volume demand. So particularly our inside sales volume dropped precipitously. And what we had found out was human behavior was taking over, where people believed, correctly so, that they would get access to a person sooner if that person was implying that they wanted to make a sale. Now, what ended up happening is the moment you talk to that warm body, they realize that, you need an issue with support, and they will pass you over to support. So the issue doesn't get resolved faster. So in that process, we worked through making sure that we had the right team staffed for the call intent.
Yeah, interesting. Was your team a part of I'm trying to think of the name of it, mate. You might be able to remind me. There was a Clive agent that was created that was fixing the cables and whatnot around the world, the fiber cables that run. So those fiber cables have a whole bunch of faults and things that come into a contact center, and they were able to create an agent that automated that process and made it extremely more streamlined pretty much overnight. Was your team a part of that, Jeff?
So part of CSS I was not specifically involved. A few things that my team had gotten involved in is other issues, other sort of quirky issues, like the Xbox. I'm not sure if you guys knew this, but not Xbox. There was a hardware device where the resolution to fix it was actually to put it in the refrigerator or the freezer. And so these we
That
had
sounds
so
interesting.
I know.
Okay.
We'll have to look. But there was something about putting it into a cold environment would help with some of the temperature issues that we were experiencing. This was a long time ago, and those are kind of they're volume based inquiries, and so being able to help resolve things through agents, through voice agents. So we've done it through that. We've done a few other ones with power cycling. But my team wasn't particularly involved on the cables. But a lot of the other kind of similar low complexity issues where agents have been able to take out the volume. So
Yeah, because I guess you could look at all of the calls that come into the contact center now, whether it be a digital channel or voice channel, and kind of bulk those together and go, is there a possibility that we can create an agent that would actually go and resolve this?
yes,
Before in the years of old, if you go back years of old, 2 years ago, we would have looked at, what are your top 3 or 4 inquiries coming to the contact center? And, for a lot of organizations, it's reset my password kind of stuff. And then we'd go, why don't you put a chatbot up and, we can resolve that really quickly just through, a Power Automate flow or something in the background with Power Virtual Agent back in the day. And that was kind of what we did. Now, though, we can look at that at really complex. So we could probably go down to, what are your top 50 calls that come into the contact center, and then look at agents, how they can really address that entire span. And I think that's really the big win. My team did a demo recently for a financial institution in Australia where we did multi-agent onboarding, and it was really sophisticated. I was really surprised at how we could get that business process and really make it work. So I guess my question here is, do you regularly do that? Do you check at these processes and then assess them of whether an agent can kind of resolve that end to end, or is it something that you review all the time? Or?
yes, I mean absolutely. And I'll tell you, a lot of the work now, if you think about this next phase that we're in, before the phase was IT is going to give you these features built into Dynamics, which you use, things like case summary, writing an email. Now, and this is perfectly aligning with Satya's vision that he expressed last week at MCAP Start, that, we are, the software factory for the planet, but it's taking it one further where we are creating the factory for people to create software built for their specific needs. And so we're starting to see where our support engineers are creating agents for their specific tasks, right? So like one specific example is, we have a support manager that wants to make sure that he is being supportive to his support engineers. And so he's able to create agents to help him prepare for in-depth one-on-ones where, he's got the backlog of case queues to be able to look at. And so that shortens his prep time dramatically. And it also allows him to be present and engaged with his support engineers. And so, it's no longer, being fed these specific features, but, the agentic capabilities that you have across the portfolio, it's really all about your creativity. In fact, I think one of your guests that you had on a few weeks ago talked about that, both the creativity as well as the taste, right? You need to have both creativity and
the taste, yeah.
No.
It's interesting you touched on something there, which Matt and I have been talking about of late, which is, AI can improve the human connection a lot. And the example we used was, I think it was my wife, I've got to remember. But anyway, she went to a new doctor and the doctor used AI to do case summaries and notes. And it meant that the doctor could 100% focus on her, rather than be sitting there taking notes all day. And I think this is the thing, right? Like and I'm seeing it in management as well, if we can help us through what we have, our internal kind of performance connects and things, if we can use AI to kind of help us bring all that manual data input together, and then allow us to spend more time with the people, I
Yeah.
think human connection will be really improved. Because if you think about it, and everyone that's listening in thinks about it, you spend a lot of time on devices and you're distracted. You're not in the moment with people. And AI kind of allows that. And I'm glad that, this is the second story now where I've heard that's,
Yeah.
people are thinking about that.
It's so true. And I love that, with your wife and her talking to her medical professional, I've said this in the context of our support community. AI, a piece of technology, is allowing us to be more empathetic. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Particularly in our consumer space where they do so much more in volume. And a lot of times when customers are calling in, they're calling in because they're having a bad day. Like they've been locked out of their account. They don't have access to their family photos. And our support engineers, they absorb that. And also their empathy bucket, if you will, it's a technical term. It's not going to be the same at 8:00 in the morning as it is at 4 p.m. at night. And so what CoPilot and AI is doing is allowing them to be more human, right? It's carrying the burden for them. It's not inauthentic. So it's such a surprise, right? Because you always think about AI as being inhuman and robotic, but to your point, Scott, it is so much more in terms of benefiting both patients, customers, as well as professionals. So
Yeah. On our last podcast, we had the CEO of Kids Helpline on the podcast, and we spoke a lot about their contact center, which runs on Microsoft technology. And the difference for them is that they can see more children. The counselors can have a better conversation. And we raised, do we think we'll ever be in a position where AI will do more of that frontline counseling, just so we can talk to help more kids? And they're kind of working through that. Like it wasn't, Tracy said, it wasn't a definite, like, no, we'll never do that. We'll always have, it's kind of a person there. It's just like, what's best for the kids and how can we help them? So I think this kind of mixed AI human in the contact center kind of relationship that we have now, I can actually see a lot of benefits for people at the end of that, which is surprising. Because when we first kind of launched it, it was like, oh, we're going to automate everything and just put AI in front of everyone. Well, no, we're actually seeing some really good results now for people.
Yeah, I think Jennifer touched on that in her first podcast as well. Part of the benefits of AI is being her new staff members are more supported as well. They're more comfortable in taking these calls. So there's a real human, empathetic element to actual internal staff, not just the external customers that are coming through. And again, Tracy from your town, providing that information to the counsellors. Again, the kids are getting better support. The counsellors are more comfortable as well when providing that service. So again, it really resonated with me when we were chatting to Tracy, and it took me a trip down memory lane to our initial kind of conversation, Jennifer, as well. So
Yeah.
Next time I come down, so I can meet Tracy. She her organization sounds amazing in terms of what they're doing for the community. So
yeah, definitely, 100%. So we're kind of 2 years on. How's the CSAC going for your internal employees? And are they still super excited about the rollout?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. But both internal agent satisfaction, and also we've hit a high watermark for our CSAT as well. When I talked about, some of the any of your support organizations are really measured across 3 areas. It's your cost, right? Most of your contact centers run as a percentage of GNL, a percentage of GNA. So, you never get more money the following year. Obviously, also your customer experience and also your agent experience. And so, with AI, and we're seeing it with the results, it is impacting all of those 3 metrics in a positive way, but if you think about some of the other transformations that, we've had over the last 25 years, many of those were, cost-cutting measures. I would say that with the exception of, say, COVID, where everybody suddenly got to work from home in their pajamas, which also was a cost-cutting measure because we weren't paying for heating AC. Like most,
my suit budget went down.
Matt's pajamas right now, I'm sure.
No comment. No, good.
But yeah, look, I'll tell you that where we're going with some of the next capabilities, I mentioned the agentic capabilities, but AI, conversational AI, it's very good in language, particularly around translation. And what we've started to work, and this is now in GA inside of Microsoft Teams, is this ability to do live translation. So you can now be having a conversation, a technical conversation in Mandarin, and, on the other end, you're speaking in French or Italian. By the way, I was also curious about if it would translate between Australian English and American English. It doesn't do that yet.
Okay. Okay.
I really need that because a funny story, when we're in Seattle, we're walking down one of the main streets and we just wanted some Australian food because it is a lot different to American food. And we see this shop that says the best pies ever. And I've gone,
meat pies.
What are we doing? Meat pie.
Meat pies.
That's
Yeah,
going to be
Australia.
awesome, right? We walk in there, we open up the menu and it's full of pizzas. And I've gone, since when is a pizza a pie?
Australia isn't known for pizza. Yeah.
So we were very disappointed.
We can test that AI by the word toil, yeah? We'll put toil in and we'll see if it translates the Australian version of toil to the American toil. We've got the word to test it with to see if it works. So we can do it that way. So.
It was interesting. I know we're not allowed to talk about most stuff that went on at MCAP Start, but there was one demo I want to bring up in particular, which was Seth's demo. I don't remember it. He demoed talking to advanced AI that was interacting directly with a shop, I think, at the time. And he was flipping between, Japanese and English and things like that. And you're getting applause in the audience because it was so accurate.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. We saw an iteration of that, I think, at Ignite or maybe the last MCAP Star. But now, Matt, I know you haven't seen the demo, but it was really good.
I'm building it now. Yeah.
How good the language translation is and things like this.
Yeah, we're literally building it now. We've got a big CCAS event that I think you're actually dialing in for, Jen, as well. I think so. So we're doing that at the moment. We're kind of the scenario of like you're a university student and you obviously speak some English as well. But I go, hey, my natural language is this. Do you mind if I have this conversation here? And it flips across to that natural language. So again, we're in the process of building that out now. And again, I think it's really cool. But that kind of spawned from the idea that we were chatting on Teams a while back, Jenny. That's what you were talking about, this multilingual language translation. I was like, I need to play with that. That sounds super cool. So you spawned my demo. So thank you. So yeah.
So that must help a lot because I can imagine if someone rings in, who only speaks Mandarin, you've then got to route to someone that only speaks Mandarin, and then they've got to have, an open queue for that to happen. Otherwise, they might have long wait times. Have you seen like I guess a bump in CSAT for people who don't speak English in the contact center because you can do that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we're still early days in this, and the preliminary feedback is very positive in terms of CSAT. Yep. So high CSAT, no DSAT. We also measure DSAT. For the next 6 months, we will probably have lots more exciting stuff to talk about. But I mean, to your point of like, having all of those attributes matched up in time. So not only, both being able to speak the same language in the same time zone, with capacity, but then also the technology. And, I talked about this earlier, like the technology is not getting easier. So you've got across Azure, people will argue about like upwards of like 70 different potential technologies. And that's just Azure, right? You have all of our other applications as well. Like that's just incredibly complex. And, sometimes, the best possible engineer for the job doesn't speak the language. And so this is now an ability to be able to both reduce cost, but also increase customer sat, because what do they want? They want their issue solved quickly,
I didn't think about that. That's a really good point. Like access to people that, have the right skill set, but can't communicate. That's a fantastic use case for it. So, So looking forward, what are you most excited about over? Is there some use cases that you're going to tackle that might help our customers that are listening in that thinking the same thing?
Yeah, and this is, if I was, boss for a day, the things that I'm really excited about as a potential and is, again, I mentioned that inside of support, we are frequently a cost center, but because we're in this position of being able to help out customers and we understand potentially there's resiliency issues, things that, they could potentially benefit from in terms of new products that would make sense for what their estate is. With now the agents presenting potentially I'll call it upsell opportunities to that customer. Now, of course, you have to do it appropriately. You don't, when the customer calls in and they say, my VM isn't working, you don't say, hey, can I sell you something, like UltraDisk? Like, that's not the time to do that. But being able to present suggestions of, hey, here's an opportunity that you may consider. Like, I'll give you one example. It's a pretty straightforward example. If somebody's got a M365 family plan, but they notice that there's only one, account or one user, that's an example of where the customer is not getting, full value for what they're purchasing. And that is classic customer success. It's not selling them more, but making sure that they are getting the value for what they bought from Microsoft. And so, being able to present that to a support engineer that is probably more wired for, I need to fix this issue and move on to the other. So that's kind of that overarching theme of how do you change your support organization into an adoption organization that drives not only sustaining and maintaining the revenue, but potentially growing it. And I'm hearing some of my colleagues I talk to outside of Microsoft, in support leadership capacities, also thinking about that as a potential. So how about you? Are you seeing that from customers that you're talking to in Oz?
Yeah, we are. I mean, one of the things that we noticed about a year ago was, if you look at the engineering org, both sales and service now report up into Jeff Comstock and then through to Charles. And those products, we've seen technology kind of coexist between the two Dynamics apps, if that makes sense. So they're leveraging sales and customer service and vice versa, because we're thinking that, AI is a really great use case for sales. And at the moment, everyone kind of looks at it for customer service, but I can definitely see in the future that, a customer service agent will be able to create a marketing journey. Perhaps in the moment, as you're chatting to, IVR or a chatbot, it can make suggestions real time about perhaps products and things like that. So it's interesting that you're going on that journey as well, because I think that's what we're seeing the market kind of lean towards. And I think there's a really good use case. Everyone hates cold calling. I think there's a really good use case for automated kind of cold calling. I just don't know.
Initial screen or something like that. Just vetting if they are interested and then having a human call out when it's a slightly more than just a cold, it's slightly warm. I think that's going to be quite interesting. Yeah.
We had this huge scandal in Australia where it was called the robocall problem, where basically I don't know what's our version at Centrelink in the US. It would be Social Security, I think.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know.
Kind of just auto-dialed everyone and sent them a message saying they owed a debt, and they didn't actually owe a debt. So it was really bad. A lot of people went into a lot of mental health problems and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I think there's a sensitivity around outbound dialing with AI that it gets it wrong. But I definitely think we'll get there, because it's a job that, just humans don't like doing.
Yeah, so, I know. It's nobody likes rejection,
Yes.
No. No one likes that.
Yeah.
You can tell me I was on the dating apps before, so I'm off those now. So.
After chatting to Advanced Voice, I could definitely see a day where AI could convince me to buy something I didn't want to buy. I'm just going to have to go, I don't want to chat to the AI because it's going to sell me something and I don't want it to. So, very good. Very good.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Another scenario that we're exploring is sort of like proactive outbound when it comes to like student retention at universities as well. So that would be college over there, Jen. So if your grades are slipping or you haven't attended some classes and something like that, how do you be proactive, get in contact with the student, make sure they're okay, all of those types of things. So again, I think those proactive use cases, I think AI is getting to a point where it can dissect, it can look at data and make, really informed decisions to be more proactive when it comes to support and outbound and reach. So interested to see if you're seeing that stuff in the US as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're in that piece around like picking up your clientele, your community that's at risk. Not so much a use case that we're seeing inside of support here, but over the last year, I've spent a significant amount of time in Europe, and there are statutory laws around making sure that your citizenship, identifying citizenships at risk. And I will probably miss on some of the details, so I'll summarize. But when an agent at the municipality gets an incoming call from a citizen, they are trained to listen for certain things that the citizen says that potentially puts them at risk, right? And we know that agents are human. Sometimes they miss on that. And so being able to have that extra pair of ears, they're listening for it, especially when it comes to, protecting your most vulnerable. So these are people calling into, say the equivalent, Social Security or your utilities. And so you are starting to see that, be done to protect folks that need protecting, right? Not taking advantage of it, but we also know that, AI has a potential for, insanity, like you guys mentioned with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the FSI customers were seeing that as a use case as well that they're looking at, which is can they do screening, or it's kind of the AI on your shoulder, saying that something's been said or it shouldn't been said, or here's some comments for that person.
Yeah.
Based off
it's a
regulatory
really good use
compliance during
case.
those calls. Yeah.
Do you think do you think Microsoft will get to a point where, now that we've released sort of agent to agent communications through MCP, do you think that we'll get to a point where I'll kind of have an agent, which is almost like a personal assistant, and I've got an Azure VM down, and I just go, can you just ping Microsoft and resolve it, and then that agent will connect to the contact center agent, and they'll just sort it out?
Yes.
Do you think that's
mind-blowing?
possible?
Yeah. That will happen. In fact, I think there will be also this point where like your agent doesn't even have to do it. Like there's somebody monitoring that something has gone wrong, and they reach out to you, or they reach out to your agent, this Scott agent, and like they all sort it out for you, and they let you know. They say, hey, we saw some, power cycling on your VM. We solved it. And like, you're informed. But yes, I think we will get there. And I think we will get there faster than we think that we will. And again, given how fast everything is moving. So.
Well, yeah, if you think about like what we were talking about earlier about, what are all the processes in the contact center, or what are all the inquiries that are coming in that are now solvable with an agent? And then, rather than have anyone even ring the contact center or chat or anything, just have your own agent, just ping it. And just go and resolve it. So that'd be great. Microsoft could release a support agent that I can install, and it just sits there and monitors everything, and then things support if it needs to. That's probably that. That would be, I would say, that would be the ultimate in a support experience.
I know. It would be
that'd be the pinnacle.
It would be the pinnacle, and it would be a vastly superior experience. And remember when Clippy was trying to help us right over?
I love Clippy. So yeah.
I've got my team kickoff in a week, and I'm gonna go onto Vivo and see if I can create a Clippy something. Which that video software that Google released a few weeks ago. That's fantastic.
I know.
So,
well, so speaking of the your personal use of how you are leveraging AI to make yourself more sophisticated, you talked about your upcoming offsite. So how are you guys using AI in cool ways, either professionally or personally?
Yeah. Well, it's timely because we're going through it now. So maybe I'll go first, Matt. So I use it personally. I use it across Chat, Grok, and Gemini for different things, and to see, for most things that if I've got to ask a question or even learning, I use it a lot for learning. For work, we're using it for account planning. So Researcher, which is our agent internally, go and, look at these accounts, look at the data, and come back and tell us where we think the opportunities are. We use it for summarization all the time. Rewording emails is nearly every email now. I think I run CoPilot over it first, and just a whole bunch of admin kind of tasks and things like that. So I would say I use AI a lot for my day at the moment, and there's a huge saving in time. Huge. I don't think we could do the kind of transformation that we're going through right now without it. That's for sure.
Wow.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, certainly couldn't live without it now. It's like a mobile.
How about you, Matt?
I've been using it in some really curious ways. So I can't even remember the day we didn't have AI. I'm at that point now where I'm using it so much that I just can't fathom the fact that we didn't have this technology before. It's actually scary. So personally at home, I've been playing a lot. Did you play that Wordle game through the New York Times or something like that?
I try
Have you
to
heard that
avoid it.
before?
My husband plays it.
Yeah.
So
My girlfriend got me into it. And I'm super competitive, and I was on like a 10-day Wordle. I couldn't figure this thing out. So I screenshotted it. I didn't want to lose that day. And I was up to my last turn. I put that into AI and it gave me the final word so I could keep going. So yeah, if she's listening, I'm sorry. I cheated.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not good use of that. That's actually called cheating, man. I just call that out.
I was on like a 10-day streak, all right? I didn't want to lose the streak. I was pulling my hair out and it was ruining my day.
The secret's out.
Yeah, that's just the answer in the back of the book, So,
I'm just shocked. I am shocked at just how good the models are getting as we're going, but I'm also shocked at how quickly my technical team will grab the new technology. But basically, MCP released the next day. We built a multi-agent demo and we're hitting the product team and they're going, no one is doing this. What are you doing? It's quite crazy. Wow. So it's still just running so fast to adopt the new technology and then get it out to customers. Mm-hmm. And if any partners are listening to this, I think there's a huge opportunity, but to sync with what we're doing, because I think the gap between what partners traditionally delivered and what we're actually delivering now is very different. And Matt, you would have seen that over the last 12 months. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're building a lot of stuff. We've kind of revisioned how we were designing solutions in the past. So yeah, it's a really exciting time. And like you said before, Jen, there's so much happening at the moment. You're just consistently learning and evolving and changing, because this AI stuff is changing by the weeks, almost not even months, it's weeks. So it is super cool. So, but before we sort of wrap up, you go.
No, the thing I was to tell you is my personally just kind of a +1 to your point.
Yeah.
Of, all that stuff is moving so fast, and it's nothing that you have to compile, right? It's all low code, no code, clickable user interface.
Yeah, vibe coding's huge at the moment. Everyone
vibe coding,
yeah. Coding, yeah. It's crazy.
And so the point of that, like the vibe coding, but the Microsoft researcher. So let me tell you, my recent example. One thing that we need to do to make sure that our businesses are solid is we need that red teaming kind of persona, people that will tell us, here is why your business venture is going to fail. And so I did exactly that. So I took Microsoft Researcher and, I shared with it some, business concepts that we've been working hard on. And these are high visibility, projects that we want to make sure that we are successful at. And I told it to go through and tell me all of the reasons for why it will fail and how to build out a mitigation plan. Because if you think about this, if you brought in somebody to do that for you, to act as a red team, to act as that devil's advocate, you'd hate them, right? Because they're basically tearing apart your idea. But having this researcher do that for you, it saved me 2 weeks. And it amazing. And then had it turn it into a podcast so I could listen to it while I was walking to pick up my daughter from camp. So it's incredible what it's doing now. So
that's perfect.
Well, on the topic of podcasts, you've recently launched one as well. Do you want to talk to me a bit about that?
Shameless plug.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the shout out. Yeah, you guys inspired me. So, one of my very dear friends who's got 3 decades in personal finance, and a few years ago, I wrote a book on finance. Her and I started it on basically how to be money well, how to be healthy in personal finances. So yeah, thanks for the shout out to it. So
that's awesome. We'll put a link in the show notes so people can listen in and into the podcast.
And I'd love to come on and learn a thing or two and be picked apart. So please invite me on. I'm sure it'll be great listening to tell you about my meme coins and yeah. So I'll tell you what my crypto portfolio is by the time I come on. Hopefully millions, but we'll see. It's a bit volatile, as we know. So
we'll see.
That
was an awesome chat. Thanks again for coming on. Hopefully in a year's time we can come back for another update. But any final words? How can people get in contact if they need to? Any final words, Jen?
Yeah. So one, we are learning. We're moving fast. If anybody has any questions for me, you can reach out at jelowry@microsoft.com. And I think Scott and Matt will also post my LinkedIn profile. So
yeah, we will do that. Awesome. It was fantastic catching up with you, and we always enjoy the conversation. So looking forward to next time.
All right. Cheers. Good day.
Thanks for tuning in to Powertime, your source for practical insights across Microsoft AI, low-code and digital transformation. Just a reminder, this podcast does not represent the official views of Microsoft. The opinions shared are those of our guests and hosts. If you found value in today's episode, share it on LinkedIn, drop us a rating on Apple and Spotify, and subscribe on YouTube for more. You can also check out our full archive updates at powertime.eu and on Substack. And finally, if you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please don't hesitate to reach out. In Australia, you can